Hey everyone, this is Connor Foley, and I am presenting on Tilt, Shifting Your Strategy from Products to Consumers by Niraj Dawar. The book was a pretty good read. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just shifting your mentality towards consumers rather than your own products. Um, and if there's one underlying theme of the book, I would say it's value. So that's first off the number one lesson is value. So a customer can go to a store and order a 24 pack of Coca-Cola cans for about $6, and that makes the average Coke can about 25 cents per can. Um, well, consumer, if you're in the park and you're going for a stroll on a hot summer day, you'll stumble across a vending machine, and you'll pay $2 for a can of Coke rather than the actual value of a can of Coke, which is 25 cents. Why do consumers do this? This is because the can out of the cold vending machine provides a lot more value to you than it does in the store. Um, and the underlying theme of this, and like what Dewar talks about, and like he asks you this question is, what do your customers buy from you rather than your competitors? So, I mean, think about the convenience of buying that Coke can. You don't have to, bring around a cooler with you. You don't have to carry a Coke can in your pocket. You just slip in the $2 and out comes a nice cold Coke. Um, and then lesson two is cutting customers' costs and risks. So that's what is value to people is cutting the costs and risks. So, for example, they talked about Sainsbury wine, and for the average consumer, wine is uh, can be kind of intimidating for a first time wine connoisseur, I guess. There's so many different flavors, so many different types, colors, etc. And they can range from $5 to hundreds of dollars. So it can be kind of intimidating getting into drinking wine. And so what Sainsbury did is they knew that the consumers were intimidated by it, and so what they did is they color coded their wines. So if you wanted a sweet wine, they would label it with red, and then if you wanted a more bitter wine, they would label it with yellow or black or white or whatever. Um, so and that just you don't have to have it necessarily a better product or a better price. You just have to have something to differentiate yourself from your customers. And then lesson three is the competitive advantage and seeking value within customers. So in the book, they talked about this company called ICI, and it's a company that produces explosives for the mining industry. But they had to change up the way they thought about themselves as a company. They took into consideration customers' needs and issues, and then as a miner, to change, what are your issues? What are your issues as a miner? What are your risks? So, the risks are not the explosive isn't big enough, right? And if the explosive isn't big enough, you're gonna have to buy more explosives to break the rock. Or if it's too big, then you've blown up more than maybe what you're mining for. And then the other issue when it comes to miners is can you safely store it? What happens if an accident were to occur around explosives, which is very possible. So what ICI did was they they took all their they instead of just selling explosives, they would guarantee their consumers that they would have a successful explosion on site, and they did this by taking years of data from other explosions. So there's many factors that can go into it. The wind, the weather, um, if the rocks, what the shape of the rock is, or what kind of rock you're blowing up. So they took a bunch of data, and they guaranteed their customers that there would be a safe explosion, and it differentiated themselves from their other customers, and that was like their competitive advantage because they had all this expertise and data that they would collect from these explosions, and the competitive advantage kind of accumulated on itself, because after each explosion they would collect data on it, and it would, if you're a competitor trying to get into that field, it would take a long time to collect data, while IACI is already doing it. So, I mean, if I had to give this book a grade out of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a 9.5. I thought it was a really easy read, good read. The thing I liked about this book was they would ask you questions at the end of the chapters. So here you can see are some questions that they would ask you at the end of each chapter, and kind of they'd be like critical thinking questions and get you thinking as a consumer. I'd recommend it to anyone who is going into the field of management or marketing, or even an entrepreneur who's trying to own their own business, because with any company you have to ask these kind of questions about, who are your customers, what are their needs, what are their demands, what are the risks. So yeah, the only reason why I wouldn't give it, I didn't give it the 10, was because some of the case studies were a little bit older and a little less relevant. They taught, like, for example, like one was about Apple and Steve Jobs, how he, during the time when like Napster was going on, and all these MP3 downloading websites were going on, Apple, changed the whole game of music consumption, because they made this platform of iTunes where customers were willing to pay $1 for music when they knew that exactly what they were getting. They knew that it was going to be safe. They knew just exactly how, they knew, and they can only buy one song too. They didn't have to buy the whole album. So it was it let the customers know exactly like what they were getting.